Hi all. Okay, so today we're going to do number 10, Cybersecurity for Beginners, How to Study, BYTES. That's what we're going to go over today. Before we get started, I uploaded a few shorts, and they're basically just looking at these books. Each one is a book, and we talk about the back cover and the table of contents. The reason why I bring that up is because then you can see what topics you need to study. It's not hit and miss clicking around the internet. So that's why it's good to go through the books. In case you don't know how to get to the shorts, if you go to one of my videos here, this is number 9 on YouTube, click on the channel name. That brings you to the main channel page, and then click on Shorts. Here's a quote I picked up years ago. Study without desire spoils the memory, and it retains nothing that it takes in. Study without desire spoils the memory, and it retains nothing that it takes in. Basically meaning, if you're not interested in a topic, the information just won't stick with you. So Leonardo da Vinci said that. Reason why I bring this up, I had talked about a previous story where a young mother had said to me about her son, "I don't care what he does, I just want him to do something." And then a little while later, I started to expand that. I would tell people, just pick something and get into it. Most of us, we know what we want to do. I know I want to be a computer cybersecurity person. I know I want to be a football player. I know I want to be a baseball player. Whatever it is, But at the same time, I'm realizing that if a person's not interested in it, it's going to be hard to stick with. There's nothing that I can do to help you there. You just got to find what you want to do and stick with it. Now, I just added this the last couple days or so. I don't care what you do, I don't care what you study, some parts are just boring. One example would be like a pro football player. Doing routine exercises day in and day out is just monotonous. And that's one of the most exciting things in the world, right? The reason why I bring up this boring stuff is because we're going to talk about bits. Bits in the computer. It's kind of early to be going over this type of thing, but I just wanted to get you thinking about it, because it's a tough topic. Okay? So it's not something that we use a lot in computers. But when you need to know it, you really need to know it. Just to prove my point, let's go to ChatGPT and run this question. So here's chatgpt.com. Do hackers use bits and bytes? And it comes back with a pretty good answer. Now, remember, we're not learning to be hackers here. We're learning to protect against hackers. But you have to understand what they do in order to protect against them. Okay? So it says here, yes, hackers use bits and bytes even if they don't always think about them. Everything in computing is made of bits, zeros and ones. So anyone working with computers is working with bits and bytes. Okay, so data is sent over the network is broken into packets. Packets are made of bytes. Each byte is 8 bits. Hackers analyze packets using tools like Wireshark, looking at header bits, payload bytes. Exploits often depend on exact byte values. Buffer overflows overwrite memory byte by byte. Shell code is written in raw bytes or hex. Okay, so I know lots of this stuff it's like talking Greek, but I just wanted to show you that you need to know a little bit about bits. Okay, so we're just going to get started on it today. Okay, and then next question, just to prove my point. In studying cybersecurity, do I need to know bits and bytes? Okay, so we're in ChatGPT. Okay, so it says, yes, you need to understand bits and bytes when studying cybersecurity, not at a deep electrical engineering level. So everything you defend, attack, analyze, or investigate is ultimately bits, zeros and ones. This includes network traffic, malware, passwords, files, encryption. Okay, then network traffic analysis. When using tools like Wireshark, you'll see packet sizes in bytes, header fields measured in bits, payloads shown in hex and binary. Okay, so they're touching on a few words that we were going to go over today. Bits, bytes, binary, hex. Okay, what's all that stuff? Don't worry about this topic too much for now. I just want to get you started on this stuff. It's a big topic, there's a lot to it, but you don't really need to be a genius at it. But the more you know, the better. And once you get a good start, it's really not that hard. Rarely in computers, we must work with bits. Bits look like this. Bunch of zeros and ones. A series of zeros and ones. We are able to avoid this stuff 99% of the time, but when you need to know it, you really need to know it. So bits are zeros and ones. 1 bit is a 0. That's 1 bit. 1 bit is a 1. That is 1 bit. Everything in a computer is represented by a series of zeros and ones. This is called binary. Binary meaning 2, because there are only 2 items, a 0 or a 1. This is also called base 2. Base 2 is a numbering system. Other numbering systems used in computers are octal and hexadecimal. Our normal numbering system we use in everyday life is called base 10. we count to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you go to the bank and take out $100, or you go to gas station and get $10 worth of gas. That's all base 10. Base 10 is a numbering system. So with the bits, we're using base 2. The 0 bit represents off in a computer. The 1 bit represents on in a computer. So 8 bits bunched together is called a byte. To remember bit and byte, think of a bite as taking a big bite from a sandwich. So this is a byte, 8 zeros, and it represents a 0. This is a byte, and it represents a 1. Makes sense, right? Here's where it gets tricky. This byte represents a 2. This byte represents a 3. So what's going on here? Think of each 0 of a byte as 8 columns up and down. Each column represents a number. Starting with 0, that would be our first 0 here. Okay? And then double it, 2. Then double it, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. Notice how each column doubles the previous column. Okay, so to reorder this correctly, let's flip it around. I've got a graphic for that. Okay, so here's our byte that represents 0. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Here's our column numbers. 0, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and 128. Okay, so this byte represents a 3. The 8th position, 1, is equal to 1. So the 8th position is equal to 1. That's this one here. The 7th position, 1, is equal to 2. We put a 1 here, but it's actually equal to 2 here. And that's how we get the 3. Okay, so there are charts online that list the number and their 8-bit representation. Here's one. So it's called the ASCII table. Here's the different numbering systems. Decimal is what we normally use. Octal is another one used in computers. Hex is another one we use in computers. This is the one we're talking about today, binary. There's a lot more to this topic. We'll come back to it later. You can read about machine language. So let's look at this on ChatGPT. Machine language is the lowest level programming language a computer understands. It consists entirely of binary numbers, 0 and 1s. that the CPU can execute directly without translation. Machine language is written in binary, base 2. CPU specific, different processors, x86, ARM, RISC-V, use different machine languages. Fastest possible execution. No interpretation or compilation at runtime. So this line brings up something kind of important. It looks like a fairly simple line, but there's two words here that you'll need to get to know. For cybersecurity, Python is a popular computer programming language, and Python is interpreted, meaning you write a page of code, you write a program, and then when you run the program, it's interpreted. It executes as it runs. Other programming languages are compiled. Into an application, a .exe file, an executable file. So you write a program, then after you're done writing it, you compile it, and you create the application. That's this compilation. You compile it into an executable file, a .exe, and then you run the application. Python is an interpreted language, which means you write it, and then when you run it, it runs line by line. Python can be compiled. So let's check that here. So here it says Python is best described as interpreted and compiled. Source code, bytecode. When you run a Python program, Python first compiles your code into bytecode. This bytecode is low-level platform independent format, and then the Python interpreter executes the bytecode. The interpreter reads bytecode instruction by instruction and runs it on your CPU. So Python is compiled to bytecode and then interpreted. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Here I wanted to say, what is assembly language? That's one that you should know too. Let's go back to ChatGPT for that. So here it says assembly language is a low-level programming language that is one step above machine language. And then here, instead of writing 1000, you can write something like move A1 61H. So this move A1, that would be an example of assembly language. And that's also something that you rarely need to use, but when you need to know it, you need to know what it is. You may not have all of these things memorized, but you should be able to say, hey, that's assembly. I'll go look it up. And here again it says an assembly program written for one type of processor won't run on different types without modification. So the processors were Intel, AMD, ARM, RISC. Assembly code is converted into machine code using a program called an assembler. Why use it? It gives control over hardware, allows optimization for speed or memory, and is often used in embedded systems, OS kernels, and device drivers. Okay, so we're getting pretty deep here. I just wanted to bring up a few terms. Here I got one more question for ChatGPT. I get this a lot. Oversimplification. I simplify things too much so people can understand it. It says that statement is technically an oversimplification, but it captures the core idea of how CPUs work. Let me break it down carefully. Okay, so the question was, is this a true statement? Everything that runs through a computer CPU is a 0 or a 1. And it says that statement is technically an oversimplification, but it captures the core idea of how CPUs work. Let me break it down carefully. All data must be encoded in binary before the CPU can process it. Even floating point numbers, complex data structures, and strings, ultimately represented as sequence of bits, zeros and ones. Okay, then I think we'll save this part for next time. So this will be number 11. Okay, see ya. Bye.